Hello, I'm Kelly and welcome to the Gentle Self-Care Studio. Today we're going to make a face cream. It's quite a thick cream, so if you like thicker creams, you'll probably enjoy this one. And I'll make other creams at different times and post those videos at a later stage. So today's cream has several phases and several ingredients, but don't let that put you off. I'm going to take you through step by step. So I find it's easier in this process if you have everything ready to go, so you're not having to measure things as you're going along. So I've already got laid out before me everything that we'll need, as well as obviously all of the materials that we'll be using. So I've got heat-proof bowl here. I've also got a heat-proof jug. I've got my electric hand mixer, my thermometer. I've got a laser one that's easier to use, I find, a spatula, my paper towels and Isocol always. Ingredients we're going to be using are separated into two phases. We've got the water phase and the oil phase. So I'll go through the water phase first. So in the water phase, which I've put into my heat-proof bowl here, I've got distilled water. Now for this recipe, I've put in 126 grams of distilled water. We've then also got some aloe vera juice or gel, depends on what you're able to find. So in this one, we've got 6 grams. And then we've also got some vegetable glycerine and 6 grams of that. So those all go into this bowl. And then we can pop that aside, and then we're going to work on our oil phase ingredients. So in the oil phase, there are oils, waxes, butters, and also stearic acid. So making sure that you're measuring these out in a way that's going to make sense to you is important. So I find that the ones that are liquid, the oils, I put them straight into the jug when I'm measuring. And then with the stearic acid, the emulsifying wax and the shea butter, I put them into paper towels. So when I'm measuring and I'm using my little measuring device, whatever it is that you're using, really useful if it goes to 0.00 grams or at least 0.0 grams. That's because when you're measuring smaller quantities, you're going to need to have something that's more finely tuned, because if you're just relying on those whole measurements, you can get anywhere obviously between 1 to 2 grams, for example, and that can be quite a bit of difference when you're measuring or creating a formula that's a little bit smaller. So in these ones here in this oil phase, I have macadamia oil, and I've got 8 grams of macadamia oil in this recipe. I've got 6 grams of jojoba, 6 grams of evening primrose, 4 grams of olive squalene, and then 0.5 grams of the vitamin E. And I've put all of those straight into this measuring jug. Now, I will say that when I did this just before, I actually mucked up and I put too much of the, I think it was the olive squalene in. So rather than chuck all that out, I always keep these sort of little bottles handy, and I could just tip whatever I'd weighed into this because it already had a mixture of a few different things. And this can still be used as a really lovely face oil or leg oil or something like that. So don't ever waste stuff. When we do the next part, which is putting in the dry ingredients, there's my 6 grams of stearic acid, popping that in, my 12 grams of emulsifying wax, and my 16 grams of shea butter. So it really is useful putting them onto paper towels because they're so easy just to pour in, and then it just keeps any extra mess off your bench as well. So we're going to pop this into the microwave, and we're going to put it in just in half a minute, so 30-second bouts, just because it can heat up really quickly, and we want it to be between 70 and 80 degrees Celsius. And going over that, if it goes a little bit over, look, it's okay, but you don't want to be going super hot. You do want to keep between the 70 and 80, so a small amount of time in the microwave does make that easier to follow. So after the first 30 seconds in the microwave, I use my thermometer to check, and I'm at 54.8. So it needs to go in for a little bit longer, and you can see that it's not actually quite melted yet anyway. So I'm going to pop it back in and do it for another probably 15-20 seconds, take it out again and then measure it. So I've just taken it out for the second time. I put it in for 20 seconds. I'm just going to give it a stir because when I measured it, it's at 67.1, so it's not too far away, but some of the parts still hadn't actually dissolved yet. So I'm just going to give it a bit of a stir. I really like to use wooden disposable utensils, just because when I cut up the shea butter, it's easy to use, and then for stirring as well. And then I'm not using my kitchen utensils, and I can just throw it away afterwards. So I'm going to pop it in again for another 15 seconds, and then that should get us over to the 70 degrees. So I've just pulled it out again. I put it in for another 20 seconds, giving it a stir. Everything has dissolved. So I'm just going to measure the temp. And this is now at 78 degrees, which is great. So I'm going to put it aside and put a paper towel over it so nothing from the air can get in it. And that just helps slow down a bit of that, that heat loss as well. And then I'm going to put the water phase, so in the heat-proof water bowl, into the microwave. And again on 30 seconds to start with, and then I'll check the temperature. After 30 seconds in the microwave, my water phase is at 50 degrees. So I need to put it in for a bit longer. So I'm going to put it in for 20 seconds and then check the temperature again. So I've actually just put it in for another time because that next lot didn't work. So I put it in for another 20 seconds and it's come up now to 73, which is great. So I'm going to now get my oil phase. I just need to double check that that's still on above 70 degrees. It's not, so I'm going to have to quickly put that into the microwave to increase that to get it back up to 70, and the same with the water. So sometimes you find that it can be a little bit tricky to get it exactly right, so you just keep having a go. I like to place a cloth over the water phase. That helps to stop evaporation and again keep the heat in because the water tends to lose the temperature quickly, but I'm not going to need to put the oil in for long, so I'm just going to do that for a quick maybe 10 seconds. Okay, so I'm just going to check my oil again. Okay, so this is at 79, which is great. So again, I need to check the water to make sure that that's still at 70 or between 70 and 80 degrees. Give it a little bit of a swoosh just so the temperature can disperse. And that's gone down to 63. So I need to pop this back in now. So I'm going to put this cloth over my oil, put the water back in, bring that up, and then we'll be able to pour the oil into the water. And it's at 73 degrees. My oil's at 76, which is great. So I'm going to pour the oil into the water and start mixing. This is where you can use your spatula just to help get out any of the extra oil, because you don't want to lose any of that, or as much as possible. So you might need to scrape it down just a little bit, and you'll notice that you'll have bits that come out. And then your batter changes colour as you've got those oils and waters and butters mixing. So getting my hand mixer here, I'm going to mix for about a minute, and you can see that it's changed colour slightly and it's very much a liquid. This will start to get firmer as time goes on. I'm going to leave it now for a few minutes, then I'm going to put the mixer on again for another minute, and then after that I'm going to let it sit for about 10 minutes. I've just finished my second lot of mixing, and now it's time to leave it for about 10 minutes. So when I leave it, what I'm going to be doing is wrapping up my mixers. I don't want anything to get on them during that time. So I get some cling wrap and I just wrap that around them and over the top, and I can move that to the side and they're not going to drip anywhere. And then I've got my tea towel and I'm just going to place that over the top. So I'll let that sit for 10 minutes, put a timer on, and then I'll come back and check the temperature. It's been just over 10 minutes. So take off my tea towel. I'll leave the mixers wrapped just for now. And I'll check the temperature, and it's down to 35 degrees, which is great because now I'm ready to put in the Fenaserve and also the essential oils that I'm going to be using. I didn't weigh my Fenaserve when I first started. I wanted to show you what that looks like when I'm weighing ingredients. So when I get my little measuring jug, I put it first of all on the scale and I press it on and I let it recalibrate till it gets to 0. So if you look and you take yours off, you'll see that the numbers change because it's taken off the weight of what your measuring jug is. So I'm back at 0 and I just need 2 grams of Fenaserve for this recipe. So I'm going to pour that in, place it back on the scale, and I'm at 2.02, which is perfect. So I'm going to be pouring that in. And the thing to be aware of is when you're pouring it in, you will start to lose parts of the ingredients to the measuring jug. So just scraping that all in. So that's why if you're a little bit over, it's okay because you will lose a little bit. So if I put that back on the scales, it's at 0.4. Okay, so I can see I've almost at that 2 again, which is what I need to be for this recipe. Yeah, and and now I'm down to 0.2. So it's all good. So when I am finished with this bit, I put it to the side, and now I'm going to add my essential oils. This essential oil blend is safe for the face. Whatever blend that you use, please make sure you're very careful in selecting the correct essential oils, and make sure that you're using quantities of that essential oil that are safe as well. If you're not sure, make sure you do your research. I'm going to be using chamomile in this one. So there's going to be 3 drops of chamomile. So this one doesn't have a little stopper, which often the smaller ones do. So I need to use a little eye droplet. So first of all, get that in there, and I'm just using 3. 1, 2, 3, and I squeeze the rest back into that bottle and pop the lid back on. The next one I'm going to be using is clary sage, and I'm going to get 6 drops of clary sage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put the rest of that back into the bottle. The next I'm going to be using is geranium. Love the smell of geranium, and this one's going to have 10 drops. So some of the stoppers are a bit better than others, so you need to be really careful when you're pouring them out to make sure you get the correct quantity. That one. Okay, the next one I'm going to be looking at is my lavender. Oh, I love the smell of lavender, and 10 drops of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'm going to be putting in some frankincense, and 6 drops of frankincense. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the last one is rose. I'm going to be putting in 4 drops of rose. 2, 3, 4. Lovely. So I've got my essential oils in now. I'm going to unwrap my mixer, and I'm going to mix up the Fenaserve and the essential oils before I let it set. When you're mixing, it is important as well to scrape down the sides. So with your little spatula, just do that a couple of times, or at least once, just so you can get those bits back in to the rest of the mixture for when you're mixing. Finish the final part of the mixing process. It's now ready to be set aside. When you're setting aside, I'll just shake off any of the extra little bits on the mixers to start with. When you're setting aside, placing a tea towel over it is really important. You don't want to be putting the plastic wrap over it, because this will actually, as it's evaporating, as it's cooling down, you get the little water droplets at the top, and that falls back into the mixture, and you don't want to be having that in there. So the tea towel works really well. I'm just going to set that aside where no one can touch it for about 6 hours, and then they'll be ready to pot up. My cream is setting, and now it's the least exciting part of the process, which is the cleanup, but really important. So when you are cleaning up, making sure that your equipment is sterilised. So for my little jug here, I'll pop that in the dishwasher along with my mixers, and that will make sure that that gets a really thorough clean, and then I'll spray it with Isocol. If you don't have access to a dishwasher, then you can be using hot soapy water, and then you'll need to pop it into the oven to sterilise it. I think it's about 100 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes or so, but you'll need to check that for yourself. I then store my essential oils in the fridge, and all my other ingredients go into a dark cupboard in a box, so they're all kept properly stored as well. So it's the next day, and it's been far longer than the 6 hours I suggested to put the cream aside to set, but that's okay, that's life happening. I think it's been about 20 hours. What I'm going to be doing now is just showing you what it looks like, and then we'll put it into the little containers. So if I hold it up here, you can see when I tip it, nothing's moving, and that's what we want. So it's properly combined, there's no water or extra liquid present, and it's nice and firm. So let's pot it up. When I do this part, I always have, of course, paper towels, my Isocol, and I tear up little strips of paper towel as well, because I'll show you what that looks like when I pot everything. Sometimes I get a bit messy, and it just helps me clean up the rim of the containers. So these are the jars that I'm using. They're nice glass jars, and I've got 100 ml here. I've got a 50 ml, and I have a 30 ml. I always also have little sample ones because guaranteed there's always a little bit left over. Now I have already sprayed each of these jars with the Isocol again, even though they come pre-packaged. You know, you always get dust and contaminants, so I like to make sure everything's really clean. So I've sprayed everything. I just haven't wiped this one down. So I just get a paper towel and I just wipe that over. So you want to leave it for about a minute with the Isocol in there, and then we're ready to pot. So I get my biggest one first of all. This is actually somebody who's ordered one from me, and I'm going to be placing the cream inside. So I just give it a nice little stir again. So I'll just show you as I'm doing that. Something very satisfying about stirring some cream. And look, there are far more elegant ways to put it inside. I know some people use a piping bag, but you kind of lose a bit of cream on the inside. I just use a spatula and let it kind of dollop on the inside. Ooh, there we go. So you see it kind of makes a bit of a mess up the top, but that's okay. So I'll go ahead and put that in. And then what I'll do is I bang it on this little coastery type thing that I have. The reason being, you get air pockets trapped in the cream, and you can see that when you've got a glass container. I'll bring it up close to show you. So you can kind of see it looks a bit mottled. So that's some air pockets. So what I do with that is I pop it onto here and I just bang it. And what that does, it helps the cream settle a little bit more. And as I do that, little air pockets come up. So you see those little holes there? So they just pop up. So it means that the cream is going to have a more even distribution. I finished putting the cream into this 100 ml tub. I'm just going to bring it up to show you. See how it's all messy around the outside? So this is where I get one of these little strips here, and I just carefully bring it around to get all those little bits off. Because when you present it, you want it to be looking really schmicko for people. There we go, that. And if I hold this up, you can see there's no more of that mottled look because all those air bubbles have come out, which is perfect. So then I'm going to get my lid, just pop it on, and there you've got it. You've got your beautiful cream that you've made. Now I've got the other containers that are here, so I am going to pop those up and then I'll show you what that looks like all together. We've ended up with a 100 ml size container and a 50 ml, and also a nice size of a sample. I love to keep samples and give them to people because people, you know, might be interested in trialing the cream, but it's always really nice to get something to see if it works for your skin first. So having those set aside with the leftovers from the bowl is fantastic. The last little bit I do here is I spray some Isocol on a paper towel, and I just wipe down the containers because they do get a little bit greasy from when you've been putting the cream in, and you need to have a really nice surface for when you put like a label on, and then also you don't want to be giving it to people that's got marks all over it. So that's the last little bit I do there. Now this process was done in the microwave, making the two phases, the oil phase and the water phase, but equally you can do those two phases in double boilers. So you'd need two, one for the water and one for the oil, and you'd need to be doing that at the same time. I just wanted to show that there, you know, is a way that you can use your microwave for the creams, but equally you can use the double boilers as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this process. I look forward to hearing how you've gone with yours. If you'd like to keep up to date with what I'm doing next, please like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.